Are you looking for a simple, easy water feature for your garden? One that doesn't require much maintenance and doesn't need to be filled that often? Well, this might be the answer. Join me today as I show you how I make this solar-powered bubbler fountain. Hi, I'm Gardener Scott, and this is a pretty easy project. There's no electrical tools involved. There's a little bit of labor, and to do it the way I do it, it does take 2 days. But the actual labor and time involved making the fountain is pretty minimal, and it should be something you could do. The idea is quite simple. It's a pot inside another pot, and this upper tier will have the water flow. Now, I chose a scalloped pot. I've had this for years and decided it would look really good in a water fountain. The lower pot I just picked up at one of the big box stores. It's a resin pot. It doesn't have any holes in it, and that's important because I want it to hold the water. And then to support this top pot, I just have another pot underneath, and you could use a block of wood, a stone, or a plastic pot. And I just take the upper pot, rest it on the inner pot, and this is going to give me a fountain. You can do this project with any size pots that you want, both the bottom pot and the top pots, totally up to you. Do be aware that the water in this pot is going to weigh quite a bit. This is a smaller resin pot, and I expect that it'll probably weigh 40 to 50 pounds when filled with water. A taller pot will definitely weigh more, so you need to think about creating a firm foundation to be able to hold that weight. And so I went ahead and put in a couple big concrete blocks. I started by digging a hole and then laying each of the blocks in, making sure that they're perfectly level in all directions. And once both of the blocks were level and side by side, I felt pretty confident about their ability to hold the weight of the water above them. And then after that foundation is built, I decided to add a visual element of some rocks around this area. I'll be putting some plants in, and so the plants and the rocks together with the cascading water of this fountain, I think will add a very nice visual element. Because this fountain is sitting in the middle of my garden and I don't have electricity out here, I decided to go with a solar pump. And the one I chose specifically has a very long wire to it because I'll be mounting this to the trellis behind me. And it also comes with tubing because the water is going to be pushed vertically. Now, this pump, as small as it is, can push 170 liters per hour. That should easily give me a height of about 2 feet, more than I'll need for this project. If you go with a higher pot, or if you have electricity, you might opt to go with a powered pump that you can plug into an outlet rather than the solar one. But for me, and for this size, the solar powered pump actually works pretty well. I'm going to keep the panel out of the sun because as soon as it hits the sun, the pump is going to start running, and I don't want the pump to run without water. In preparation, and this is why this is a 2-day project, I went ahead and ran the tubing through the bottom of this upper pot. Some of this tubing is going to be inside the pot. The lower tubing is going to be connected to the pump. You'll need to block the hole in this upper pot using silicone. I just cut a piece of an old pot, put a lot of silicone in, and then ran the tube up through it. it. So there's silicone in the top, there's silicone in the bottom, and this hole is completely sealed so that this pot will be able to hold water. The tubing is going to go straight into the middle of whatever you're using to support that upper pot. That's one reason why I like using this terracotta. It already has a hole in it. I do not block this hole because the tube needs to run through it. And allowing for space for the tube to run out and for wires for the pump, you'll need enough space. You'll need a gap. So I went ahead and just took a file and filed away part of this upper lip. That's where the tube and wiring will run for the pump. And so now I'll just go ahead and take this lower pot, feed the tube into it. It's already set on the notch, and then I just turn this upside down and lay it into my pot. And so now I'll take the pump and just attach it to the tubing. Now this pump has little suction cups, so I could attach it to the side of this lower pot, but I want the pump to be directly underneath this tubing. So I just slid it underneath the lower pot, and I have the wire running through that gap that I made on that upper lip using the file. Before I run this wire and mount the solar panel, I want to make sure that it is an open line, that the pump is working right and there's no crimping of the tubing. So first thing I'm going to do is add some water and then test the pump. And so the solar panel is working and it's pushing water up to the tube, and now it's filling the upper pot from the lower pot, which is exactly what I want. And so for the next part of this, I'll go ahead and fill up the lower pot while the upper pot is filling from the pump. And this will be the second part of my test to see if this is working the way I want it to. This tube did a pretty good job of filling the upper pot. And there are a couple options. At this point, I could keep the tube vertical, just use some type of mount at the top, and then have the water cascading from a central point like this. And the pump does come with different nozzles that I could attach. But what I've found in my very windy and dry humidity region is that when I have water spraying vertically like this, it tends to evaporate pretty quickly or get blown out of the pot. So with this design, I want the tube to stay in the pot and just have it fill and recirculate and become a bubbler fountain. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and fill this upper pot with rocks. I'm starting with 3 larger rocks that together form a little triangle around the tube because I don't want the tube crimped. And now I'll put in some river rocks of different sizes, shapes, and colors to add a visual component and to fill some of the space around these bigger rocks, being careful not to block the tube or crimp it in any way, because I want the water to just bubble out and fill this upper bowl. And so while this is a nice visual element to my garden, a primary reason why I have water features in the garden is to support wildlife. Now, with a stronger pump, I could have a lot of water cascading over the side, but I just want this to recirculate the water and provide an opportunity for the birds and the insects to come and take a drink. The next step is to beautify the area around the water with plants. I picked up a few annuals that are already blooming with a few buds that will offer some more blooms, and I'll put them around the pot. I'm regularly adding perennials to this area of the garden, and we'll continue to do that, but for now these annuals will give a nice quick burst of color. Now, I'm not worried about this pot overflowing, but in a heavy thunderstorm it's possible. If that happens, well, the plants and the mulch that I'll lay down will help keep this entire area nice and tidy, even if there's too much water in the pot. Mulch at the base not only helps protect the plants, but will also cover up those blocks. And the addition of water plants like this water hyacinth adds another nice burst of color in the gap between the inner pot and the outer pot. This is not intended to be a flashy, noisy water feature. No, instead, it's simple. It's quiet, it's artistic, and might be ideally suited next to bird feeders and pollinator plants so that the wildlife can find the water that they need. I'm Gardener Scott. Enjoy gardening.